Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Graham and this is the ACSOM Bulletin on a nice Wednesday afternoon. A big welcome to all those viewers of the broadcast, whether live or on catch-up, who are currently living under COP26 restrictions. We're being told to recycle more, be more green for the future of this planet. I'm doing my bit, lads. I'm really doing my bit. I'm a Celtic fan, so I'm very green. I believe that Glasgow is already green and white anyway. And I recycle other people's opinions as my own on this broadcast, so I can't get much greener than that. Colin, what are you doing to be green?
I mean, you're stealing everybody's thunder there, Kevin. Is there anything left that you can do to be green? No, I'm taking the Greta Thunberg approach. If you heard her chanting outside in Govan Park, I don't think I'm allowed to repeat that on air, but I will go with that. This COP thing makes absolutely no sense, Kevin. They're talking about saving the environment, talking about this. Have you seen the queues of aeroplanes flying out of Glasgow, Prestwick and Edinburgh Airport and the travel cascades that they've got going all over the place? The best one I seen was the Zimbabwean group who came over, the delegation from Zimbabwe. So if you've not seen this, the delegation from Zimbabwe went to Costco and stocked up on Glenfiddich, beer and every other spirit under the sun, and let's just say it's not going down well in their own country right now. They're talking about overthrowing the leadership, but I'm sure it was a great party. I'm just jealous I wasn't invited.
I'm sure the people who want to overthrow their government, if they actually get a nice presentation box of Glenfiddich, I'll actually soothe their sieve. Brian, what are you doing to be green?
To be honest, mate, I'm at the road. I'm quite far down south now, but one of my favourite bits about it was Joe Biden having a wee nap midway through. Really showing his...
Who doesn't he, mate? Who doesn't he have a wee afternoon nap?
Absolutely brilliant. First day of the COP, the big fellas fell asleep, and I just thought, you know what? That sums it up. It's costing £100 million to have a bunch of delegates sitting there agreeing on something. You could probably just do it over Zoom and donate £100 million to facilities to take care of some climate change, but I just thought for my own self, just checking the EPC of the house, make sure it's all good.
I like that. I mean, that £100 million could actually save the Maldives, because that's what the Maldives are actually asking for. So yeah, you're quite right there. You're quite right. I want me Greta to be the capo at Celtic Park after that video went. I think she'd be great doing the front of the North Curve. Right, we'll start. We'll get on to the serious stuff, even though saving the planet is extremely serious. Anthony Ralston, the big news yesterday that he signed a new contract, keeping him at the club until 2025. The player has been at the club since the age of 8, and he made his debut in 2016 at McDermott Park, a game I was at. Funnily enough, I think we got beat, and I think Near Beaton scored a penalty kick, if I remember correctly. I should have checked that. The club is already holding him up as a product of the youth system, and the player himself also says that Callum McGregor and James Forrest have been major influences on him and his attitude. Brian, can we have any complaints about this contract after the player having such a breakthrough season for Celtic?
No, I don't think so. I think, look, regardless of what your opinions of him are as a footballer, what you can't deny is that he's worked so hard this season to improve himself and put the effort in. And the thing about it is, he got a year extension, which would mean if clubs would have been interested in him, which I imagine there would be now, he could have left for free. And how many times have we seen that movie? So I think it's prudent now, and I think it's a sort of change in tact the club is used, especially during the summer and signing players to 4 or 5 year deals. So I think it's good business. I think I still don't think he's first choice right back. I think Juranovic has got that, but you can't deny the effort the boys put in. He's sort of earned it. He was written off at the start of the season. He was given, I don't know if there's many other players in Celtic history have been slaughtered before a ball was kicked, and he's proved a lot of us wrong. He's worked hard, so fair play, and I think it'll ultimately be decent business for the club because, well, he's tied down.
Definitely. Bruce FM on commenting on YouTube says, thoroughly deserved, well played, Ralston. Colin, your views on Tony Ralston are well known. The stats show this season he's been an ever-present. He's played 1,920 minutes, scored 4 goals, he's had 2 assists, and he's created 6 big chances. He's also got a heat map that could power a small city, probably a city about the size of Inverness. I mean, global warming and that, we should just put a solar panel on his back and we'll be able to save the energy crisis. The numbers are impressive for me. They are impressive, but I'm worried that his numbers are in the red zone and he will only continue at such a impressive rate. I mean, that could just be me looking at the player before this season and know the player that we've had this season. But there's more intelligent guys out there who study these type of things, and they say that he struggles against speedy, direct opponents in Europe. And luckily domestically, only Ryan Kent and Martin Boyle seem to have the metrics to trouble him. He also tops the possession charts for possessions lost per game for Celtic. He loses on average 19.4 possessions per game, and that's the highest in the squad. So when you take all of that into account, are we right to have our doubts about him?
I'd say so, and I'm not going to give my full range of what I think of Anthony Ralston, because I can't really be bothered with the abuse that will probably come from it. I mean, there's already some comments coming in already. Look, I've got my say on Anthony Ralston. Whether you agree with me or whether you don't, that's fine. But has anything changed from the position we were in at the start of the season? No, it's not. Is he performing how we expected him to perform this season? Most likely. He could always have done a job against a St Mirren or a Dundee United or a Livingston. What we need to do is, if you want to move forward as a team, you've got to have the players that can go beyond that level and take it to the next level. We're talking about on Monday, the Monday team we're talking about, we don't want to drop into the Conference League. But that'll be your level with the kind of players that we've got. If you want to make the step up, you've got to bring the players in. We're in a transition period at the minute. As you said, Brian, I would have Juranovic in there right away. Just because a guy gives 100% every game, that's the least you can expect from players, or the least you can demand from players. I just think he's a limited footballer and he's done well. He's deserved his contract, and we'll see how many games he gets out of the next 3 years.
He has done well, Brian, and that's the point. And I don't think anybody can take away that he deserves this contract. But there is 2 sides to this, and I'm completely in the middle. I'm the host. I get to be in the middle. I'm completely in the middle of this. Is this a sign of the club downsizing, that Anthony Ralston has been given this 4-year deal, where the signs are up until now he has been a limited footballer? Or is this the club utilising its academy and promoting from within the way it should be?
So it's a tricky one. I don't think it's necessarily a sign of downsizing. I think it's the fact that I don't think many people would have expected him to even be considered a backup player. But he's shown that, and so I think it's smart business to tie him down. I'm not sure anybody's going to say Celtic's academy is producing world-class players. Here's Anthony Ralston. But the reality is, as I say, he's maybe saved the club some money by being a good backup for Juranovic. But again, I don't think. Well, I'm quite happy he's got a contract, and I think he's earned it. I can't disagree with Colin saying he's no. There's a point we'll probably make later on regarding the Livingston game, but the players in the park, I would say, not being a large part, but there's a section of players in the park that simply aren't good enough to play the type of football that we need to play. They can play it, they're just not great at it. And I think Ralston probably falls into that category. That being said, he's never really let us down. So it's quite a good dynamic to have, I suppose. And as I say, I think he's not going to be on massive wages. I don't think it's an indictment of anything more than a reward for his decent work. And as I say, obviously Postecoglou, rates him enough that he's been fairly present.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, Johnny Ryan says Ralston's only 22. He's got years to improve. That is true as well. But what the point I'm maybe trying to make, and I'm maybe trying to make it badly here, was earlier on when he got that contract for the year. Can everybody remember the uproar there was that he got that contract for a year? And as for me, it is kind of clouding my judgment on giving him 4 years at this precise moment in time, because I'm still seeing that player that was at loan at Dundee United and St Johnstone, even though he's been utterly fantastic for us this season. And I'm still sitting here with a smidgen of doubt in my mind, Colin, that we've maybe jumped the gun here. And I can't shake that. I can't shake that at this precise moment in time. And I love what Anthony Ralston's done this season.
The thing is, but we've been on about this kind of several times about having a squad. And I think you're seeing this more now when you look at like Sir Rogic and stuff being out. Rogic's out, Starfelt's out. You've got these players that you need to be able to turn to. Now, would you have said back in July that Anthony Ralston was somebody that you could turn to? Most likely not. But now with the kind of form that he's kind of shown, then he is somebody that you can turn to. So it is part of building a squad. But as I said, he wouldn't be the first choice. He's someone that, and I think I seen somebody say it in the comment section there, he's a solid hand. And that's kind of what you're looking for.
I like that, a solid hand. I do like that description now.
So, to be honest, he'll get his deal, however many games he'll get, but it's about having those squad players. We said back in the summer, and people had a go at us then, that Stephen Welsh should be a squad player eventually. That's what he's became. That's not a slight or a dig on the players. It's just the fact that you need to have squad players, you need to have first choice players, and you need to have star players in your squad. Ralston will be a squad player, and that's, if he's happy with that going forward for the next 4 years, then that's great. It's good to have around.
Remember Paul Telfer when Stratton came and he brought in Paul Telfer, and he was a kind of reliable scorer. He never really did anything wrong. He didn't really do loads right, but he was a good guy to have around, and he was good cover. So I think Ralston's in that mode, and I think you're probably right about Welsh as well. Like, and there's no harm in because there'll be times they'll come in and out the team, blah blah blah. But we can't be hypocrites either, because we've spoke a long time about Celtic needing to be at a higher level to improve as a club, to improve the players and stuff. And we always have to be looking at who's better. You know, if we're going, say we're looking at signing an attacking midfielder in January, which we need at least one, right? Probably two. That doesn't mean that David Turnbull's going to get binned and he's rubbish. It's just that we need to look for someone that's better than what we already have. And then that'll change. That's just the dynamics of a football club. So I think there's a tendency, and again, it leads into a point later, but there's a tendency to sort of pick a side and stick to it. You know, if you like Ralston for the start, you need to always like him, no matter if he's good or bad. If you didn't like him at the start, you need to always admit he says rubbish all the time. And I think that's nonsense. I think opinions can change, form can change, and the dynamics of the team and how you view it can change. So I don't see why anybody has to get overly excited about it. It's not a particularly great thing. It's not a particularly bad thing. It's just a thing, and it's no damaging the club. It's probably giving the player a reward. I don't see anything wrong with that either way.
We'll leave the last word to Misty Indigo on YouTube. Up until now, we had no idea what he could do as a player. Also, people develop at different times. Everybody at a Celtic State of Mind is pleased that Anthony Ralston has signed an extension to his contract. Well done to the lad. He's for a Celtic family. He's a Celtic man. And it's always good to have one of our own in the dressing room. So we'll see how this progresses. It's been a great story so far, and hopefully his story only gets better for him and for the football club. Brian, you did mention Livingston, so we need to go back there. Basically, I have no complaints about the outcome of this game, none whatsoever. We created only one big chance the whole game, and we missed that, which was the penalty kick. And apart from the last 10 minutes, once Ange Postecoglou, he did alter the approach slightly. Did we create anything basically half worthy of talking about? We just lacked inventiveness in the final third. Again, looking back on it, I have no disappointment in the players' efforts whatsoever. My feeling at the final whistle was one of frustration rather than disappointment or anger. Even though getting angry at football games is a wasted emotion, getting angry in your life is a wasted emotion, strangely enough. But I was frustrated that we didn't show the quality that we had to win that game in those 90 minutes. Sorry.
No, you're right. I was just going to say, so my feelings on it are similar in a way, except I think the players are a bit more accountable than we're saying. So I was looking at the stats, and obviously you get 85% possession, which is the big headline one. But we also won 80% of tackles, despite apparently giving away the same amount of fouls as Livingston. We had 90% passing success rate, and we won 70% of the aerial tackles, or aerial duels, they're calling them. Mm-hmm. That shows to me that the way the team was set up for largely was working. But out of the 16 shots we had, only 2 were in target. Now, I've seen the manager, as usual, taking a lot of criticism. And he deserves criticism for a couple of things, which I'll come to. But in terms of the way the team performed, I don't see what much more could have been done. So several times during the game he altered. So he had his normal approach. Then it was a bit more direct with crosses. Then when Starfield went off, he switched to a 4-4-2 with Kyogo and Giamakis up front. Again, told the fullbacks to stay wider. So there was a plan A, B and C probably. Unfortunately, I think there's a point where it has to come down to the players. Ange never missed that penalty. Big Giamakis did. He scuffed several chances. I think Forrest put a chance wide. There was needed shooting for long range. So there's only so much you can do off the park. I think the players are getting away with murder for this result. I don't, on the scale of things, think it's, I'm not quite as hyperbolic as some. I think heading into January, 4 points in it, I would probably have took it at the start of the season, considering the shambles we inherited. I think we all said it's a 2 or 3 transfer window seasons, and I'm not changing my mind on that. But I think it seems to be the case that Postecoglou, for whatever reason, can he do right for doing wrong? If he starts Kyogo and it's the same result, the people would say, well, Giamakis should have been on because he can bully defenders. If it doesn't change, it doesn't go 4-4-2, or if he goes a bit more direct, or if he changes the game, it's just the worst thing Postecoglou done for me was talk about sticking to his system and sticking to his philosophy. Because what that translates is, I'm never changing my mind, I'm playing the same way all the time, and that's not the case. The approach to a game and the tactics in a game are 2 different things. And people are saying he should change his philosophy, and you go, right. So I can get that when he's conceding goals at the start of the season, but defensively we're strong. And the problem in that game is we're only scoring goals. If anybody thinks the solution to that is to change from an attacking philosophy, they're wrong. If you think there could be tactically things done different, that's fine. I'm not sure what. I think it was down to players, and I think in another day, one of the players is more confident or connects one of their shots, it's a different result. So, and again, just where he does deserve criticism for balance is, I don't see why he irritated the squad or the team that played against Hibs. It seemed very strange to me. He even said himself it was the best performance of the season, and then changes it. I don't know. He knows far better than me, but I'm never a fan of rotation for rotation's sake, and that's what it looked like. And it didn't seem to work. And then switching to Juranovic, to Giamakis as penalty taker again, obviously in hindsight it didn't work. Maybe they saw something different, but again that seemed a very strange call to me. So there is criticism to be had, but I think constantly criticising the system if it's a bad result and not really praising it if it's a good result doesn't work. And I think the players need to take accountability because they're out there, and I just think if they're playing the incisive passes quicker, speed of play, stuff like that, once the game starts, the manager can't do anything about that. It's got to be accountable for the squad. It's got to be.
The manager can influence the game, and I think he did attempt to influence the game on this occasion. Colin, Brian mentioned the team selection there. For me, this was Celtic's 5th game in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And the team selection reflected this. My gut instinct when I saw the team was it didn't feel right. It felt too conservative in the midfield, with the midfield three, the personnel in the midfield three against an ultra-defensive team. But I was glad that we had the options on the bench to change it. I had a look at the bench and went, that is a strong bench to actually change it. Let's not, for me, the switches were caused by injuries to Rogic and also injuries to Kyogo. Basically, Kyogo's on that bench only to be brought on in the situation where he was brought on. He was not fit enough to start the game, and there was no way that if we were 2-0 up, Kyogo would have actually seen any minutes whatsoever in that game. We've also got the easing back in of Mikey Johnson. Mikey Johnson played 70 minutes the other night or however long they played, and they've decided he has to sit out that because he's maybe not physically ready to play the 2 games so close together. We can question the starting lineup with hindsight, but for me, the team selection just highlighted a lack of depth in the squad, especially in the midfield, and we're reliant on too many of the same players. We are reliant on too many of the same players. And the injuries to Rogic and Starfelt during that game, well, Rogic against Hibs, Starfelt against Livingston, prove that. I mean, you have a look at Rogic. Rogic this season has played 1,216 minutes. Last season, he played a total of 1,408 minutes the whole season. Starfelt played 1,768 minutes last season. And last season he played 2,764. I think the team selection for me is Postecoglou saying, I need to actually try to change something here, but we haven't got the personnel to do it at this precise moment in time.
I tell you what, I apologise to Alan Morrison here because I'm not clued up on the stats from this game, much like yourselves. He's been kind of spewing them stats out left, right and centre. I think you must have got a new book in the last couple of days, Kevin, to have that all written down. But no, you're right. Look, the one thing that kind of surprised me about that team selection, and I know he was on the bench, but surely we've got to start putting the milk cartons out to find out where James McCarthy is. Because it's unacceptable that you've got this guy in and the manager keeps saying he's ready to go, and in comes Beaton now. I don't think Beaton necessarily had a bad game, but he is someone that's going to slow the tempo down.
Well, I can argue with that.
When you look at it, for me, the idea of McCarthy, as he was starting to come into it, is that he can play the ball through the middle onto the attackers. When you take Tom Rogic out that team, that option to go through the middle is gone. It's completely gone because the likes of Turnbull and McGregor, they don't find themselves naturally in the centre of the park. You look at Turnbull when he's putting crosses in, he's actually out in the right or he's out in the left-hand side. McGregor's dropped so far back to kind of pick the ball up. There isn't that player that's in the middle of the park that's trying to play it through into the striker. See, when you take a look at that third goal over at Easter Road and the close touch and control of actually going through the middle of a defence, that is the kind of thing that you're missing when Tom Rogic's not in the team. And that's the kind of player that you need to try and look at to bring in January so that you've got Rogic and AN other in there, because we put the ball out wide time and time again and the crosses that came in were just unacceptable. Now, people will say, oh, Giakoumakis could have jumped for it, or this player could have jumped for it. But realistically, he was the only one in that box at that point. So if you don't hit Giakoumakis, then who's there? There's nobody else following it in. And I don't like to talk about the Rangers too much, but when you look at the first 2 goals they scored at the weekend, one was their left back crossing over to their right back who connects with it, and the second one's their right back crossing it into their striker. They look up and they put a ball in and it's accurate. Our crosses were horrendous on Saturday. The best one probably came from Anthony Ralston right at the kind of dying minutes of the game. But why is it taking till 90 minutes before we can put a decent ball over? I think somebody said there's like 84 crosses over the last 2 games against Livingston, and we've got 2 shots on target for the whole game, the whole 180 minutes. We've got to try and change it up. But I get there's not the players there. But for me, one of the most effective players on Saturday was Jota. Jota wanted on the ball time and time and time again, and he would take his man on, but when he looked up, who was there? You Giakoumakis with Obalaye and the other Livingston defender around him, and nobody was coming in for him to give him another target to. So the ball got floated in time and time again. It went over Giakoumakis' head and it went out, and they cleared it up the park and we retained the possession. We've got to try and change that up.
What Colin actually says there, Brian, is like one of my biggest bugbears was not Giakoumakis taking the penalty kick. The penalty kick was soft. I couldn't believe it was given, truthfully. It was almost as if Bobby Madden had just got fed up of Livingston's antics, the same as all the rest of us, and just decided to give a penalty kick out of spite. But we know that referees didn't give penalty kicks out of spite or because of an unconscious bias or anything like that. My bugbear was he was on the park to take the penalty kick. I mean, there was 37 crosses put into the box at the weekend, and I was closer to most of them sitting in 4-1-2 than Giakoumakis, and some of them were poor, but there were some of them that were going into the box. And I've looked at this player, I've done the research on this player, and he's a penalty box player whose food and drink is crosses into the box, either low or high. When you look at his goal reel for the Dutch side, this should have been food or drink for him. But on Saturday it was like Harry Potter appearing in a James Bond film. It just didn't make any sense whatsoever on the park. And what's your thoughts on the penalty kick? We'll go back to the midfield, but what's your thoughts on the penalty kick in Georgios Giakoumakis? I must admit, I really must admit, this is my first sighting of Giakoumakis in the flesh. I've been impressed with him when I've seen him on the telly. I wasn't impressed on Saturday whatsoever.
Yes, so first of all, the penalty, such a strange one. Like, it's a red card because the boy puts his hand out there and the contacts. It's a bit like, remember when the boy slapped Dida, who would beat AC Milan at Parkhead? You know, the reserve had been shot. So, you know, he's been doing easily and a bit dramatically, but he was hurt. So it's a red card anyway. And I wasn't sure if just because it's a red card in the box it necessarily makes it a penalty. I was confused, if I'm honest. I was glad to go to the penalty, and then I was gutted I missed it. So I suppose it worked itself at the end. In terms of Giakoumakis, it's what I said at the start. It's, you know, the players have to be taking accountability as well. As you said, Colin, there, with the amount of crosses coming in. Somebody's either got to go at the end of them or the crosses need to be better. You know, these are things that there has to be a responsibility taken. But I was just thinking as we were talking there, see any time, you know, see when McGregor's sort of out of position, the midfield goes, it just changes that magic. It's like if Roderick's not playing, if McGregor's not playing, if that dynamic isn't there, we're not working. And then if you take Kyogo out the team, you also have that lack of movement. Now, I'm not sure, I don't know how much, you know, movement he'd have got considering the amount of people behind the ball, but as I say, just we know the problems with the team. The problems with the team is we don't have enough good players. That's the reality. And if you take a couple of key players out, we're struggling. It's simple as that, I think, and it's frustrating, but that's just why we've been sort of harping on for the start of the season that it's going to take a while, because we do need to get bodies in, we need to get a bit more quality in, and Sunday with just that extra sharp eyes, you see, like Jota, that extra creative flair, we did lack it for the midfield. And I've been kind of harping on about the midfield for the start of the season, because I never really felt the defence was the issue or the attack was the issue. I always thought it was the transition between, and it was the same again in against Livingston. Although I'm not buying this well down to Livingston for the defensive masterclass. It was anti-football. I don't care what Andy says. If you're going and you're setting up like that and you've no intention of getting the result or entertaining people, I mean, my team's on a relegation battle, but for me, it's exactly not what I want to see in a football team.
No, Brian, I agree. Liverpool, Livingston were just a horrible gang who deserve no credit whatsoever, and they deserve to get slaughtered at the gates of the god of football. Con, going to come in here. We've got a new Tyrone. The Tyrone patter's back. I don't know where he's went. Giakoumakis could be the new Tyrone. What's your overall feeling on Giakoumakis?
Do you know, it's a difficult one, because I don't want to kind of say that it's what we should have expected from him, but we've kind of only seen him in fleeting appearances so far, and then the performance that he did put in against St Johnstone when he played, that wasn't too dissimilar from the performance that we got against him on Saturday. I don't think you get the same sort of energy and the same sort of commitment from him as what you get when you've got Kyogo up through the middle. Now, I don't know if that's a case of maybe having to play two up front and he needs a strike partner alongside him, or whether it's just he doesn't suit the system that we're set up to play. When he took his goal well against St Johnstone, he had his chances against Livingston on Saturday, and you could see he was exasperated by the end of the game. I mean, his head in his hands, he know what he'd done. I know people have said that that's just how he steps up to take a penalty, but see, if you're not full of confidence, just put your foot through it. Put your foot through it and see what happens. If it went over the bar and he put his foot through it, I think people would be kind of a wee bit less harsh on him than the fact that how poorly he took the penalty on Saturday. As you said, should they have been on the park? Should they have took the penalty? Should the penalty have even been retaken? Because to me, the goalkeeper's miles off his line when he goes to make that save. Look, it's all if, buts and maybes. The fact is, we had 90 minutes to put in a performance to get ourselves top of the table for the first time in God knows how long, and we didn't follow through. That was our first big challenge that we've had in that sense, and we didn't do it. We have to learn the lessons from that and learn them quickly, because the way this season's going, we're only going to get a couple of bites at the cherry.
I think we could get more than a couple of bites at the cherry. I'm not going to go back on what I said a couple of weeks ago when I says this could be the lowest points total to win a league for a number of years, and I'm not going to change my opinion on that. The last word on the Livingston game before we move on to the midfield and Ferencvaros tomorrow night. And I'm going to come to Colin, because Colin was in the stadium as well, the same as myself on this. So on the 30th minute, there was a stomping, very, very soulful let the people sing, as the majority of the stadium showed support with the protest against the possible appointment of Bernard Higgins to a security role within the club. For me, and this is just my opinion, it showed that all is not lost within the support, and we haven't just become a silent support who just want to win games of football and ignore the other issues that are being foisted upon us. And the PLC got the message in that 30th minute. They got the message that Bernard Higgins is not going to be welcomed by the paying punters in that stadium. Now, we can argue all day about whether you should do it in the stadium or not. Football fans only have the stadium to protest in. That's where it makes a maximum impact, for me anyway. And whether it's by songs, banners, silences or empty seats, I feel Saturday's protest was expertly executed, Colin, and the message was loud and clear.
Yeah, I think if anybody in the board had any second thoughts on the appointment or the potential appointment of Bernard Higgins, then I think they got the message loud and clear from the Celtic support on Saturday. And it's not just the Green Brigade, it has to be said. You've got the North Curve, you've got the boys group, and the protests and the banners that they put up were well organised and well thought out and well put together. Look, everybody knows about this guy's past, and they know about the trouble that it's caused for hundreds and thousands of not only Celtic fans but Scottish football fans across the country. When someone like that's potentially been brought into your club, then you've got to find a way to put your point across. I think, as you said, it was well organised. I think it had a very strong impact. I don't think it had an impact on the team the way that some people thought that it was going to, because they were actually in the ground. If we'd have scored, they'd have celebrated. It wasn't for the fact that they weren't cheering for 30 minutes that made any impact on that game. But yeah, as long as this goes on, I'm sure that won't be the end of it.
Brian, as Colin says there, I don't think it had an impact on the atmosphere whatsoever. Colin mentioned the Green Brigade and the boys. What I was more heartened by was the fact is the normal punter actually got involved as well. Maybe not in the silence, but when the silence ended, the normal punter got involved, and also when the banners were revealed, there was a roundy applause all around the stadium, and for me that's quite heartening for somebody who is as vocal opponent of the board as myself.
It was just nice to see the fans sort of united together again, wasn't it? And I says the positive is it was good to see, as you say, the fans getting involved and make their feelings known. The downside of it is that it just shows the disconnect between the board and the fans highlighted again, doesn't it? Because every fan there, as you say, feels the same. I don't think there's a section that are like, the guy probably do a good job, let's give him a chance. I think universally, nobody wants him at the club. So it was either a very naive appointment or an appointment designed to make mischief. But I think the fans were stuck together, which is nice. And showing a bit of solidarity. So, and I agree with you. I don't think it much a factor on the actual players or the game. No. If they've been silent for 90 minutes, maybe, but I don't have any real issues with it. And it's not about necessarily always agreeing with the Green Brigade or any of that stuff. Or it's just the fact that this guy, as Colin rightly said, he's affected people within Scottish football in a very negative way over the years. And, you know, it just seems that it was, as I say, it was a naive appointment, if anything, and I'm glad the fans stuck together.
I'm going to bring up Roddy McDonald's point here for a bit of discussion. We said last season that the lack of fans' noise hurt us, so it's not consistent to say that the fans' silence had no impact on the team on Saturday. I think that's two different matters. There was the North Curve and the boys group who were actually having the silence only number about 1,500 at the most, maybe 2,000 at the most. There was another 48,000 in the stadium that could have made noise if they wanted to and chose not to. Or does that just show how much we actually rely on these groups to generate an atmosphere, Colin?
Do you know, one of the kind of takeaways from it was good to hear the chants coming from the Kano kids on Saturday. That brought a smile to the face looking at that. And I know from reading some of the stuff that's been out on Twitter, especially from young Erin Boyle, who was kind of with the kids on Saturday, they had a great time trying to generate a bit of the atmosphere. That's, as you said, there is 48 to 50 odd other thousand fans in the stadium. If it was such a big deal, then I'm sure there's another group up there that would have stepped up to make the noise. If Celtic had scored, that place would have still erupted. Do you know what I mean? So I was very surprised, to be honest, given the reaction that I seen online, the reaction inside the stadium, because it universally was a positive reaction to them. But in the same sense, it was a great thing to see.
The urban cliche, I need to bring this up. The Kano kids are counter-revolutionaries. There might be some of them as they grow up to actually be like that. Brown Warrior says, silence the objectors by employing a guy who's an expert in singling protesters out. That was the reason it was a silence. That's what was the point that these groups were trying to make. And again, I think it worked, and I think the majority of the fans made sure that the PLC got the message. We'll move on to tomorrow night, and we'll also have a look at the midfield. We've already mentioned the midfield. And tomorrow night's a different game, but overall there's a bigger picture here, Colin. We're going to need to actually learn how to break down joyless teams that come to Celtic Park now that St Johnstone, Dundee United, Livingston and Ferencváros to an extent have actually done it. To us. They've learned that's a game plan now on how to frustrate us. For me, the answer lies in the midfield, and we need a more active pivot when faced with these sides. You mentioned like Near Beaton earlier on, and by the way, I'm going to actually need to bring this up. I'm not having anyone call him Nero, as Ange Postecoglou did in the press conference earlier on. When he's called him Nero, I'm not having that. I'm not having him getting called Nero. That's just me, though. Against I'm going to hit you with my figures here, Colin. So he had 113 touches against Livy, right? He contributed no key passes, no shots, no dribbles, and he created no chances. He was basically an empty jersey against that type of opposition. There was no need for him to be there with that type of opposition. If you have a look at Callum McGregor in the same position against Motherwell, St Johnstone and Ferencváros, he has 9 key passes. That is a pass that creates a chance. He had, I'm just trying to have a look here, he had 7 shots. He's also more creative in that role, and he's more effective in the press, according to something that I read on the Celtic Way last night. I think what this proves, and even tomorrow night, we need our pivot to be creative in certain games, and tomorrow's one of those games as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think when you look at it, this is going to be a totally different game from the time that Freddie came to Celtic Park, because when you look at it, they set out to sort of the same way that Livingston and St Johnstone have played, to kind of limit Celtic to chances from either outside the box, which we don't seem to put an effort in, or to put them out wide to put the crosses in. I love that Nero's kind of going through the chat now. That's what happens when you mention stuff like that, Kev. What you're looking at here, but is we're probably going to be a team that's on the counter-attack tomorrow night, because they know that they've got to try and get the points in this game, Ferencvaros. Otherwise, I believe they're out the competition completely. So they are going to come out and they are going to have a go at us. And if you listen to Kev McCluskey, our Hungarian expert, he tells you that they're a very, very dangerous team. So although we never saw it at Celtic Park, don't be surprised if they come out and have a go at us from the word go. And there's 2 things that we need to watch out for tomorrow night. The first one is protecting that back 4, because you're going to probably play Juranovic at left back again, and you're also going to have Stephen Welsh, who hasn't played since the Livingston defeat. So he's someone that could be potentially caught out cold, because there is no development team, there is no games that he can go and play. He's just simply not kicked a ball, apart from in training, since that game, and we're throwing him in there. Then you're sitting going, who's going to play that role in front of them? Do you trust McGregor to play in that role? If so, you need 2 other midfielders. And then it comes down to who do you play in there. Now, David Turnbull can be very, very effective for Celtic. We saw it when we were away at Betis. I think he was one of the best players on the park that day. But then you have games like Saturday where he was very ineffective. He didn't contribute a lot. I'm sure, Kev, you've got the stats there somewhere for how David Turnbull played on Saturday. But I mean, I was walking out the ground on Saturday, and there was the players signing the jerseys and the stuff for the kids, and David Turnbull's head was straight down, straight into his car. I think he was very disappointed with his performance, and it kind of shows you the mindset that maybe he's in. Hopefully, he can bounce back from that for Thursday night.
Before you go any further, Colin, he was only midfield player that had a shot.
That was a deflection. That took a massive deflection.
He had 1 shot and he had 4 shots blocked. He was only midfielder that had a goal for outside the box.
Yeah, I remember he had the shot blocked in the second half when he was about 37 to 40 yards out. And that kind of shows you the desperation that we're getting to there. So the midfield 3 is going to be the most difficult selection. For me, you've got a number 10 stuck on every day of the week for this game, and he showed it in the first leg as well. Jota's got to play through the middle. Jota has to be your number 10 tomorrow night. Considering that Rogic isn't there, he's got to be there. The question then goes, do you play Turnbull as your number 8 box to box, or do you play McGregor in that role? And then you're looking at, it's probably going to need to be beat on, because you're not going to bring Sorrow in out of the cold. And McCarthy, as we know, we don't know where he is right now. He's on the milk cartons. We can't find him.
Brian, to agree with what Colin actually says there, McGregor for me has to be the pivot. He has to play as a number 6. For me, that means Beaton has to move to centre half. If Beaton is in Ange Postecoglou's consideration for selection.
Would you pick Beaton over Welsh then?
If near Beaton is Ange Postecoglou's thoughts, it should only be at centre half. for tomorrow evening.
And your own thoughts, though?
I wouldn't have beat on anywhere near the team.
I'll be honest, Dave, I'm right to the league to say that. He's going to be heat maps and his XGs and he's in the centre half. I think Beaton probably has to. So I think you're right. Callum Edgar's better as a 6 because he can relieve the pressure off the defence and collect the ball and make things happen. I think, given a lack of resource in midfield, you probably need to be on playing with McGregor. And I would agree with Colin. Actually, I would give Jota a try, just purely because you can see the difference Rogic makes when we're talking about beating a low block. The best way to do that is to dribble and get players that are direct and can move in and out and draw players about. So you need someone to do that, especially with his pace for the middle and a counter attack as well, which I'm imagining we'll be doing because I dare say Ferencváros will go for it. So I would probably have Beaton, McGregor is the box in Jota in the number 10. That seems like a sensible option midfield for me. Just trying something different because I don't know if Turnbull's dynamic enough if Beaton's playing. And I suspect he probably will.
I think what you've got with Jota as well is he's the only one that comes close to Rogic in terms of close control. He's the only one who's got the sort of trickery to take somebody on in that aspect as well. And he's always cutting in anyway. So he's naturally more comfortable in the middle of the park. See, when you look at the ball that he played through to Kyogo for the opening goal against Ferencvaros, yes, he's coming in off the left, but he's getting towards the middle of the park where he can play that ball through the middle. That's where we are at our best, is when we're actually cutting open teams and going through the middle. So I would give Jota the kind of 10 on Thursday. And for me, that means that you're looking at either Abada or Forrest on the right-hand side. That one's up for debate after the performances on Saturday. It'd be great if James Forrest was fully fit and able to play it. And then on the left-hand side, probably Mikey Johnson comes in there. Another one that could potentially play there as well is Montgomery. I think if you're picking between the two, you go with Mikey Johnson. I think when he came on in the second half, he was out on the left and he looked pretty effective.
What I'm going to say, before I come back to you, Brian, what I'm going to say, you mentioned Tom Rogic there, and you talk about dribbling. Even though he's a massive gap in the team because we haven't got a natural replacement for Tom Rogic. In the game against Hibs, he was only on the park 40 minutes. He had 29 touches and 5 dribbles. On Saturday, for the whole 90 minutes, our midfield only had 2 successful dribbles between them. It shows you that midfield hasn't got the same ability as what Rogic has actually got. The only person close to him with dribbles is Jota. And as Colin says, that he's got to actually probably move into that number 10 area. The reason I wouldn't be worried tomorrow about playing Jota in the middle of the park is like Friday, four games have got a clean sheet. And 6 out of their last 7 games there's been 3 or more goals. And Celtic love scoring the first goal. So I've got a funny feeling if Colin, you're actually saying that Friday might come out. And now Friday are a decent side. Friday are a side that would finish comfortably third in the Scottish Premier League. And we've got to remember that. So it is a tough away game. So I wouldn't mind Jota getting that number 10 role tomorrow. McGregor is the 6. Turnbull was the number 8. But my 2 wide guys, I'm asking for a shift for James Forrest and Mikey Johnson because I think Forrest has got more a defensive mind as well, where he can actually go back and Kyogo through the middle. That is what I'm looking for tomorrow. That's the team that I'm looking for.
I think the other option you've got as well, and I know he's not as effective out there, but you can play Forrest on the left. He has played out there before for us, and it means you bring Abada. And the only thing with the likes of Abada is, see if he doesn't get into the first 20 minutes of a game, I just don't think he gets into it at all. And that's, I mean, obviously he's still young and he'll develop into it, but he had a great blistering start and then he sort of tailed off. I think you've got to give him the game time, but it's getting the right game time. And I don't know if Thursday night is the right game to put the kind of pressure onto him for it. He'll be a great option on the counter because he's got bursts of pace. But it's the final ball, and that's what we've been talking about for most of the show. The final ball's got to be better.
Colin makes a good point there. I mean, who carries it better? Who keeps the ball better, Brian? Abada or James Forrest?
I mean, if I had the choice, I would start Forrest. I mean, I can agree with Colin, but no for the same reason. So I would never have a player out because I don't think they can handle the pressure. I think if you're actually, every one of them should be desperate to play, and if they can't handle the pressure, they shouldn't be at Celtic. So I wouldn't make any accounting for pressure, because I would think, well, if you're here, you should be out doing a job regardless. But I agree with you in that. I think you can tell pretty quickly if he's going to have a good game or not. It's maybe a bit of a pattern. It's probably his age because he's a bit inconsistent, but ultimately we can't really take that into account. And the choice for me, if I had the choice, would be Forrest starting. I think he gives that experience in the front as well. And he can change it up. He's dynamic and he's strong and he can cut in. He scored. He likes to cut into the middle as well. And he's played as a second striker on occasion. So I think he just gives you a bit extra firepower and a bit more options.
Colin, I'm going to come to you, Johnny Ryan on YouTube. Johnson done nothing. Are you kidding? I'm basing this on the last two games. I'm basing this on Hibs and also Livingston. I think Mikey Johnson done well in the 70 minutes against Hibs, and I see tomorrow night being more a Hibs type game than a Livingston type game. That's why Mikey Johnson's getting the nod for me and my side.
There isn't really another option out there unless if you're going to play Jota through the middle. Now, if you don't play Jota through the middle, then you're talking about who do you kind of pick up for the sort of 10 role. Because you can't play the same way that he played on Saturday. It didn't work. Turnbull's not got the pace to play as a number 10. You're looking for somebody that's a bit quick, he's got a bit of something on the ball, and then you're looking at playing somebody on the left-hand side. Do you then throw in Montgomery if Johnson's not the option? I don't think it's fair to put that pressure on somebody like that. Johnson knows that he's not been consistent enough for Celtic. You saw it when he kind of came on in the first game against them. For me, he's someone with a point to prove. And if it's not working, then you've got the other option to bring on someone like Montgomery or move Jota back out there. But if you're going to be effective and have a fast break inside, I think you've got to play Johnson tomorrow night.
There's a couple of comments coming in. Brian Johnson was a worse player. V Hibs lost possession every time. Go and look at the stats, Kev. Again, I thought Johnson was probably the weakest winger against Hibs. But when I saw what Abada done at the weekend and seeing what type of game it is going to be against Ferencváros, I think Mikey Johnson actually deserves a shout. And for Abada to come on, it's great for Postecoglou to have this option, and it's great that we're actually having this debate where 6 weeks ago we couldn't have had this debate, Brian.
No, you're right. And it's actually, it's funny. We've been kind of complaining about a few things, but ultimately it is positive. There's a lot of positives, and one of the things is we've got options. We're having discussions of who should play, as opposed to thinking there's no they have to play. We're now saying, well, they could play in this position, we could switch it up, we could move it around with options off the bench. And that's a better place than probably we expected to be, especially in recent weeks. So, yeah, it's good. And it's like, ultimately, I don't care if I'm wrong and it's a completely different lineup. It's anything for we suggested, as long as we get a result, right? Against Johnson, again, I wouldn't have dropped him for Saturday unless he's maybe no felt he's fit enough. But I think the thing with Johnson, I can't remember who commented, but I get what he's saying about losing possession and stuff, but I think he just offers a slightly different dimension at times, and again, he is good at dribbling with the ball at his feet, and it's just maybe a different option. Abada, you kind of know what you're getting. So, not that I'm saying he's a better player than Abada, I don't think that necessarily, but I think we've got a lot of space against Ferencvaros because they need to win, and I think that might give him the freedom of movement that maybe it doesn't get against a tighter packed defence.
Paul Morpheus, again on YouTube. Sorry I'm picking up the YouTube comments, but they just seem to come in quicker than the Facebook ones and that. So apologies again if you're watching on any of the 8 channels we're actually broadcasting on. Nonsense stats patter. Mikey Johnson wasn't at his best, but still got in the right areas and offered a threat. That's maybe where I'm coming from. Colin, Michael the boy comes in again and says, Kyogo in the 10 of Georgios. That's worth discussing, because, again, it's only been in the last 6 months that Kyogo's been a centre forward.
Yeah, I mean, when you spoke to him on the fan media press conference, he did say that his preferred position was through the middle, but he had played a lot of games on the left over in the J-League. Look, would it be... let's go back to the Betis game, right? Seeing that first half, think of the performance that Albion Ayeti had, right? He was actually pretty good in that first half. So I'm not saying that he should be thrown into the team or anything like that, but it does say that in these games we can have performances like that, and you could maybe see if Giacomatis starts on Thursday night and you play that kind of role with Kyogo in the 10, that maybe he will be this performance and it will kickstart him on. He is someone who, to me, I think he's very low on confidence at the minute and he needs a couple of goals. I just don't know if you want to kind of put him out there, because I don't think he's going to get a lot of touches on the ball. Now, you'll probably know how many touches he got on Saturday, Kevin, or you'll be able to look it up in the next couple of minutes. But he's got to get himself more involved in the game. I don't think he's someone who can just kind of drift in and out, because when he did that on Saturday, when it came to actually stepping up and taking the penalty, his head wasn't in it.
Lanky 67, Brian. Jota played superb against Betis and he was on the right wing. I'm in the Jim Orr camp here. I like him on the right. I really do. I think his best performances have been on the right. But Rogic is not there. He has to move into the middle for me.
Yeah, I actually like him on the right as well, if I'm honest. But again, it depends on the opposition, because he is good at coming inside and shooting or doing that kind of deeper cross. But yeah, I actually like him on the right. I would like to see him there more. But again, like you two, I actually think Jota in midfield would be a really good shout. The interesting thing with Kyogo, I know he played at left in the J-League, but I think it was a tighter front three. He was like a traditional winger. And then if you've got Iniesta threading balls through at you, when you're running in, it's totally different if you're playing out wide left in the SPFL. So, you know, the service aspect with his runs is what makes it. You know, runs in behind, running off the shoulder of the defender. So I would have him behind Giacomatis before I would have him out wide again. But I suspect if you say you were to play Jota in midfield, I think Kyogo up front works better, because his movement will make space for Jota to cut in and dribble. Giacomatis, I think the idea is that he's supposed to be a target man, but as you said, Colin, he wasn't getting much in the air, so it'd be interesting to see.
And I think there's going to be space, Colin, for Kyogo tomorrow to actually exploit. And I mean, you mentioned Iniesta feeding the ball. Callum McGregor's better than Iniesta, Brian. Let's not get into let's not get into that debate. I can't see nothing but Kyogo as the centre forward tomorrow, Colin. I can't see Giacomatis getting a shout. Nah.
I mean, I think Russell came in with a point earlier on saying that in the 5 games that we've dropped points, Kyogo's barely featured on them. One of the times he was out on the left-hand side. So it shows you how important he is to that Celtic side.
It's the press as well. It's the press as well for the front.
When you look at it, if you're going into your biggest game and you want to kind of rest your biggest player, I don't see how that works for you. I mean, this guarantees football past Christmas if you win tomorrow night. And that should be the first target of this group, is guaranteeing football past Christmas. And if you can secure that tomorrow night, then Kyogo's got to be the man to do it.
Definitely. I mean, it's not a must win tomorrow night. It's probably a must not lose if we want to stay in Europe this season. Yes, we're going to drop into the Conference League, but it's a competition we've never played in. We may as well accept the excitement of Europe, UEFA.
Do you know what the final is, Kev?
Seville.
No.
No, is it not? I've just made that up. Did I dream that?
The final is in Tirana in Albania.
Oh, we'll be on the couch at the president of Albania. So say, we Declan McConville's already got his number, eh? So
it's like a 25,000 seater stadium or something like that. So we'll maybe get a couple of hundred tickets each.
Oh, magic, eh? I don't think it's a must win. I think it's a must not get beat tomorrow night, and I want to be in Europe after Christmas, Brian, eh? So, and I also want us to keep on testing ourselves at a decent level. So for me, this game is just as important as Dundee on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we need to. I think if we're going to get better, we need to be testing it against sides in Europe. And listen, the conference is still going to be a good standard. And like we said earlier, it's still positive for me that we're actually thinking about European football after Christmas. Considering how the season started, considering Postecoglou coming in late, and all the transfer business and so on and so forth, and the problems we faced, we're touching distance for the top of the league, and we're talking about being in Europe after Christmas. I think I'd take that at the start of the season, so we're in a good place. I slightly disagree, Kev. I think it is a must-win. I don't see us getting much against. We'll maybe bet us at Parkhead, but no away in Germany. And I think we need to get maximum points tomorrow. I'll suggest.
Joe's Betis comes in. I wonder if he isn't actually in Seville with a name like that. Jose Betis. Europa final is in Seville. See, I did pay attention at one point that there was a European final in Seville this season. Before Roddy McDonald again, better in the Petrofac Cup at least. Well, yes, that's no more far getting over, Roddy. Colin, what's your score prediction for tomorrow night?
Do you know, I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I could see the odd goal being in it. I'll stay positive. I reckon we can sneak a 2-1 tomorrow night.
Brian?
3-1. 3-1 Celtic.
3-1 Celtic. Brilliant, lads. Thank you all for watching, listening and commenting. There's plenty more on our State of Mind channel. This evening at 6 o'clock, you'll have the State of Scottish Football. And at 7:30 this evening, you've got a new show called the State of Mind Oasis Album Club, which I'm going to be involved in. I'm just about to travel down to the studio to get prepared for that. If you haven't seen Tartan Taste Buds with Brian McClare, please set aside time to watch it. It's an absolutely hour and 45 minutes. A great crack. Also on the channel, you've got this week's Guitar State of Mind Unplugged session is by the usual suspects. And we've also got a track by the Sherlocks from the Out East Festival that a State of Mind covered a few weeks back. I mean, what else you got to watch? The Champions League is rubbish. So just get on a State of Mind YouTube channel, subscribe, win prizes, enjoy the banter, and remember, just keep it Celtic, eh?